Please be seated. Welcome to another episode of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification course. We're glad to see everybody here that's here in person, also all of you online also. Please remember, if you're out there online, that you should be able to go to the top of your screen, top of the browser, and find a drop-down menu that would allow you to either read along or actually download the books, print them, whatever it is you're going to do. So once again, we're here learning how to be teachers of the Peaceful Solution Character Education program, and it's something that takes years. It doesn't occur overnight. Just like keeping the Peaceful Solution, it's not something that just you read it and you say, oh, I got this now. It doesn't work like that. It's something you have to work on, I would say, all your life. If it's something that you haven't grown up with, I know there's some young men here that are growing up with it now, but I know I didn't grow up with the Peaceful Solution. I'm sure my parents did what they thought was best, and they told me, don't steal, don't call people names, don't do this, don't do that. But they didn't go deep enough into it for me to be able to control myself, to teach me self-control, teach me about influences and what I needed to do to protect myself from them and so forth. They might have said, no, you're not allowed to play with that child around the corner there or down the street, or stay away from those people, that type thing. But the learning just wasn't there, and like many of you, we grew up in see, a lot of you here grew up in the same time frame, I think, that I did, the same generation. And then we have some younger, then we have some quite a bit younger. And I can't even imagine what growing up in this particular generation would be like in this time, this day and time. It's got to be pretty tough. And so therefore, if you're a teacher, or if you're wanting to be a teacher, or if you're one of these young men, now's the time to really buckle down and learn this and put it to work in your life. So we're in the self-control unit. This is what it looks like right there. If I could get the overhead. Yep. Or a stop sign there. The self-control unit. And we're on page 126 if you'd like to turn there. Now, I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to get to hear me sing a song tonight. I kind of got to do that because Catan mentioned it last time, and so I've got to kind of, do what he said I was going to do. You don't worry, you don't have to pay or anything like that. Just enjoy it. So, page 126 is where we're starting. Now, Catan had left off on giving us some statistics over on page 124. Of how much time a teenager spends watching television as compared to in the classroom, and by a certain age they'll have seen so many commercials, and I believe that number's gone up quite a bit now. I can't remember the exact numbers that he quoted, but these are still high, the ones that are even listed from back then. And then in some previous classes we talked about movies and the influences they have, and so many things that have a bearing on us. So this topic that we're starting out with tonight, more than just a great beat on 126. Man, I don't know if enough could be said about this. At the onset, it looks like, yeah, well, I know music, you can tell when they're saying something that they shouldn't be saying, and I don't listen to that, I don't pay no attention to it. That's not right. If you're listening to it, you're paying attention to it. If it's playing in the background and you're not paying attention to it, you're still listening to it. You're actually paying more attention to it than you think you are. The reason this is, I really feel like there just can't even be enough said about how important this is because I know for myself, too, it had a great bearing in my life. I always liked music. I liked all different types of music, and mostly hard rock when I was a teenager. And these songs were like anthems. They were like something to live my life by. I know many people that this occurred with them too. You know, it was like this. I know I knew a man that really did. His life was based upon certain music, and he took on the persona of that music and did what that music said and tried to play his life out according to what he heard in the music. What could possibly cause us to want to do something like this? Is that not crazy? Just from listening to some music? But you know, you have other things going on in your life, a little bit of rebellion against your parents and teachers. You know, in the teen years, you're growing up and you're going through so many things. You don't know the answer to everything. You're wondering, why is life this way? What's the real meaning of life? Why are people treated this way? Why is there racism? Why are there poor people? Why is this? Why that? And you're trying to get answers to things. And those answers come sometimes bombarding you through the TV, video games, music, and everything, and these answers are coming at you. They might not be correct answers, you know, and that's the thing that you have to be aware of. But yet people take it as though it's the answer for them. And what drives that too, and we'll talk a little bit about it, is the emotions. You know, can everybody in here agree that music plays on the emotions? Would you agree with that? Yeah, music plays on the emotions. You can be sitting there and a sad song come on that's your particular genre of music, and you know what? You might find yourself in a sad frame of mind. On the other hand, if something comes out that's a little more on the violent side, maybe a little bit of anger, you know, you're going to find yourself with that kind of showing through. So it's something to be very aware of. And our friend the Fly is back up here again. It looks like he's decided to make this home. So, but anyways, it's so important to listen to what's being taught here. And for you that are aspiring to be teachers, it's important for you to know this, because you are not only going to try to get this message across to the students, but also you're going to be an example to the students. What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of music is playing in your car when you pull up to in the parking lot? Do you have a radio or something in the classroom? What kind of music do you have on there? So keep in mind, there's a lot to it. It's not something very simple, and we're probably going to spend a little bit of time on this. So let's get started. More than just a great beat. Now on page 126, do you know anybody who does not enjoy some form of music? Well, no, everybody enjoys some form of music. But from rock to reggae to rhythm and blues, rap, hip-hop, alternative, music speaks all languages. And that is something, too. It does transcend all barriers. A group here in the United States can have a song, and it might be a hit in Russia, or some other country. And they might not even know all the words. They might be looking at subtitles or something, or eventually it might get translated and so forth. But so someone once said that music has the power to calm the savage beast. Well, I remember reading some stories when I was younger about kings and how they were calmed down because of someone's ability to play certain instruments and so forth. And what came to mind in this particular case was Hitler. Now, Hitler, not only did it seem to I think classical music is what Hitler really got involved in. He became like part of it when he listened to it. From everything I've read, I mean, it goes into great detail. And though it could have a calming effect on him, it also could have the opposite effect in driving his vision and hallucinations and so forth, in kind of pushing him on, if you will. But yet it was used to calm him sometimes, and many other, like I said, many people. So indeed it does calm, because music is powerful. The rhythmic beat and repetitive words can have a hypnotic effect on the listener. And I remember there was I think it's called Fahrenheit 911, in which they were doing some interviews with some soldiers, pilots, soldiers, and anyway, what they would do before they went out on a mission, and knowing some would not come back and some would, they would get real hyped up for it. And one of the ways they would get hyped up for it was the music that they listened to. Very violent lyrics and a very repetitive beat, burn, 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 and getting them in that mood for that, we're getting the anger cranked up and the violence, burning inside. And so they just threw everything aside and became one with that music, It has that capability. It has a hypnotic effect on the listener in many cases. And music has also been proven to increase one's ability to learn. Now, that's why music is used to teach young children to read, and even have you considered why the ABCs are sung? Now, for some of you that might not know that particular song, I'm sure some of you older guys do, that's been around a long time, and probably some of you younger guys do too, but just in case you're not aware of it, I'll go ahead and take care of it for you. So it goes something like this. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Now I said my ABCs, tell me what you think of me. Okay, so there's my song for you, my singing. It's been fulfilled for the night, okay? So, Catan, we took care of that, okay? So, that's a very simple song, but it does place something in the head. It does place it there where you can actually remember it, And so many other songs too that have been used in education. I remember they had. I'm going to go too much into detail to this, but they had something called. I can't remember what it was right now, but it was talking. It kind of had little characters, and they would sing a song. like I'm just a bill. I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. So, and so it was actually teaching through that song. I mean, I remember that from when I was very young. And then I thought about that when we were in Washington on Capitol Hill. That song came to mind, and I remembered that, this bill-making process actually takes an extremely long time, because I remember I was taught by the cartoon, So music is very, very powerful. And it teaches not only young children, but it teaches adults too. It teaches us. And in those formative years when our brains haven't even completely formed, and in those teen years when we need the most help, the music that we listen to is going to be setting the stage for our lives. I've got some lyrics here that I just want to share with you. Make sure I blacked out some of the words. Okay, so here's a couple songs that had a bearing in mine and other people's lives in my age group and growing up. One of them, I'll just show you the lyrics right here. You don't need to really, read all of them or anything. I'm going to read some of it to you. It's called Free Bird. And I know a lot of people that actually made this an anthem to live by. So if I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? For I must be traveling on now, because there's too many places I've got to see. All right, so it's already placing within the mind that, no, hey, don't worry about responsibility here. You got things to do, man. But if I stay here with you, girl, things just couldn't be the same, because I'm as free as a bird now, and this bird you cannot change. You can't change me. I'm free. I've got to go, And, it says, and I can't change. Then it says, though this feeling I can't change, please don't take it so badly, because, I'm to blame. And if I stay here with you, girl, things couldn't be the same, because I'm free as a bird now, and this bird you cannot change. And it was a very, very popular song. It had a smooth, kind of relaxing lyrics, and then it had a part where it really kicked in pretty hard and heavy, and then it got back to the smooth stuff again. And so music plays you. It plays your emotions. It has words in it, which it's important to remember that people that write and perform music, some are doing it just as a show. The song's put in front of them. They'll go play it and sing it. They're actors too. They can put some emotion into it. And like one rap star, I can't remember which one it was, but Harvard educated, I think it was. Harvard educated and very wealthy before he even did this, but he put on this persona. He acted as a gangster from the hood. He wore the garb you might think, the dress you might think that he would wear, and he talked as if he had just walked out of the ghetto in New York, and people loved it. And so when he sang, people listened to it, and they made those words part of their life, and they looked up to him, and they had no idea that he was, very highly educated and wealthy before he ever did this gig, and it was just a gig to him. Okay, so here's another one, and this is one that taught rebellion too. There's many songs that teach rebellion in every way. I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. Some of you might know it when you hear it, but how you doing out there? You ever seem to have one of those days? I'm going to try to quit from breaking into the song here. I'm just going to read it, okay? Where it just seems like everybody's getting on your case, from your teacher all the way down to your best girlfriend. Well, I used to have them just about all the time, but I found a way to get out of them. Let me tell you about it. Sitting in the classroom thinking it's a drag, listening to the teacher rap just ain't my bag. The noon bell rings, that's my cue. I'm going to meet the boys on floor number 2. And it goes into smoking in the boys' room. Now, teacher, don't you fill me up with your rules. So here we go, the rebellion. And people, teenagers took hold of this song, man. That's how they felt at school. Don't give me your rules. Teacher, don't fill me up with your rules. Everybody knows that smoking ain't allowed in school. Checking out the halls, making sure the coast is clear, looking in the stalls, ain't nobody here. Anyway, to get caught would surely be the death of us all. This music is powerful. And the reason I'm reading these lyrics to you, I'm not trying to bring all these songs back into your mind. In a way, yes, in that you can look back and see what we're talking about is real and true, and know what these songs did to you in your life. I know that everyone in here and online has a most liked song, one that they kind of have made possibly an anthem in their life, something to kind of live by, so to speak. Here's another one that involves the rebellion at the school. Some of you will notice it right away too, but we don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. Okay, what's that talking about? It's talking about not just school, but other things too. Parents, authority in general. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone. And if I say the next little part, you'd know the song for sure. But we don't need no education. We don't need no thought control, no dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teachers, leave them kids alone. And then it ends up with kind of a vulgar thing at the very end. It's just out of the blue. It throws this thing in there in an English voice. I'm not going to read it. But it's another thing that is in the mind, that's placed within the mind. And so along the way, not only is rebellion and anger and violence taught, but also in the songs, you've got you've got them teaching about drugs and sex and glorifying all of these things. I'm gonna save the lyrics for a minute. We'll come back to it. I got a couple more for you, but just to show you, and these are things from back in the 70s and 80s. These are calm compared to today. I mean, when I was printing these things off, and I looked up, top 10 most violent songs, which I had some in my mind that I thought might be there. Well, they weren't on the list. They've been replaced, and they've been replaced hard and heavy. I mean, I couldn't even use any of them because every other word was something that we wouldn't be saying up here on this teaching podium. So anyway, music, like TVs, movies, and video games, back to the page, influences how we feel, think, and act. The influences, remember the influences. Can you associate a particular song with an event in your life? Remember when we're talking about influences, how, you can smell a certain cologne or perfume and boom, it can take you back to a time in your life where you were doing something or someone was with you that you remember like that. You might not have thought of the person in years. Or you hear a certain song, or you see a movie that you've seen 20 times and a certain part of it reminds you of who you were with watching that movie the first time, Right now, bam, 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 things are firing off in my mind of times I remembered, I know exactly who I was with watching Jaws, a very, quote, terrifying movie for the time, for its day and time, a little bit graphic, and I can remember it right now. That's how our subconscious mind works. So hearing a certain song brings back memories of when you first heard it, what you were doing, who you were with. They can also describe with clarity what they were feeling. And this is a dangerous spot right here, because those feelings start coming back. Those emotions start coming back when you hear that song. The very emotions you had right at the time. You got to be careful. So with clarity what you were feeling, and you could experience those same feelings when the song is played at other times. So in every time period, music has been used as a means of communication. The singer or composer communicates his emotions, opinions, and ideologies. And that's what a lot of composers and singers have used it for, is to do that very thing, to spread their particular opinion, to spread their ideologies, knowing how powerful music is. And if you got a song with a great beat and it gets the right play on the radio and the right advertisement and everything, man, you got it. And you're teaching all these millions, if not, well, you're teaching billions of people. They know the power of it. So teaching their ideologies on a variety of subjects ranging from love to fear, from politics, religion, social injustice. And in today's society, many songs now have lyrics that describe sexual acts and promote the use of drugs and violence. Some of these lyrics are so graphic that CDs and cassettes are rated with a parental advisory warning. These warnings are meant to inform parents that the contents are inappropriate and can be hazardous to their children. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't even know if a teenager, a 14-year-old walks into a store to buy a CD and it has a parental warning on it, is it going to be sold to them or not? Well, they don't even have to worry about that anymore. It's all online. They don't even have to go and buy the CD or anything. But back in my day, it didn't matter. I mean, you could get into an R-rated movie even if you were 13 years old or whatever. It didn't matter. They didn't care. They were out for the money. So when it's talking about the things that the singers are initiating and getting out there in the mind, the things that they like, from politics to religion, etc. Here's some lyrics that are very explicit when it comes to drug use. And this is another one of those songs that, my age group, some of us heard when we were fairly young, and it became like a motto, an anthem, something to live by if you want. If you want to hang out, you've got to take her out, cocaine. If you want to get down on the ground, cocaine. She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie, cocaine. If you got that loose, you want to kick them blues, cocaine. When your day is done and you want to run, cocaine. She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie, cocaine. If your day is gone and you want to ride on, cocaine. Don't forget this fact, you can't get it back, cocaine. She don't lie, she don't lie, she don't lie, cocaine. And it continues on. What do you think that song is about? It's about cocaine. I mean, there's some underlying meanings to it too. There always is, but this is blatant, and it was a very popular song by some would consider, and by today's grade, he was a very conservative, calm singer. This guy, it's unbelievable. A song like that back in the 70s. I'm really surprised. Most of the songs that are coming out today wouldn't have been played back in the 70s. They wouldn't have allowed them on the radio. It's just anyway. And then here's another one for drug use. And when I first met you, didn't realize I can't forget you for your surprise. You introduced me to my mind and left me wanting you and your kind. I love you, oh, you know it. My life was empty, forever on a down, until you took me, showed me around. My life is free now, my life is clear. I love you, sweet leaf. That might give it away, though you can't hear. Come on now, try it out. And it has this chorus that goes with it that's very powerful. And the musical instruments and the sweet leaf, sound itself, it just burns it in your mind. Straight people don't know what you're about. They put you down and shut you out. You gave to me a new belief, and soon the world will love you, sweet leaf. Well, it wasn't that soon, but, that was back in the 70s also. And, look at it now. The world does love the sweet leaf. The sweet leaf, they call it. So over the years, these things have been progressing on how, and they were pretty bold back then when it comes to that. But when it comes to the violence and some of the profanity and everything that was used, it was very light back then. It wouldn't have got the parents would have been horrified at what they see today. But see, we've become desensitized. After a couple generations go by, now the generation that's having teenagers is a generation that grew up with violent songs. On a little lighter side, but then they grew a little more until it is what it is today. And I have some lyrics from, very short lyrics here. That's all I could put is about a sentence in there. But when I pulled up the 10 most graphic violent songs, I didn't get 10. I got hundreds. I didn't know where to start. It just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. And so many different groups and singers, many, of course, that I've never heard of, but here's one right here. The song is Ex-Girlfriend. I used to love her, too bad I had to put a slug through her, dumped her body in the trash like I never knew her, blood running down the gutter into the sewer, her body stunk for weeks like horse manure. Man, really? That's one of the lighter ones. I had to block a word out of this one, but talking out his neck, pistol to his throat, blow this blankety blank, he gone choke. On the ground, on the floor, someone pick him up, take him to the morgue, I'm riding through New York. Finna go and shoot New Jersey up, trying to take my chain, I ain't going, we gonna come and blow New Jersey up. And, I couldn't even put more than a sentence in there, I had to block out some of that. This stuff is mainstream, man. And the music is going, those lyrics are going, it's putting it in young people's mind, and they see them on the screen, man, they got gold, they got, you know, if it's a woman, they got men or women around them. If it's a man, they got men or women around them, you know, and driving, you know, fine cars and living large and private jets and everything, and it pushes that lifestyle, but it pushes the violence and the way that they say to get there, and it pushes this thing. And this agenda, there's people behind it. It's not just, you know, some guy woke up one day and decided he was going to go doing that, but there's an agenda behind it. It's been going on for many, many, many years, and it is to destroy mankind. When you look at it, it's destroying. Now, you know, a teenager that likes that music, or adult or whatever, child that likes that particular music, they would have an argument for the defense of that music and saying, oh, it's just music, it doesn't make any difference. Kind of like the video games. It's just a video game, it doesn't make any difference. You know, just like we used to say, oh, it doesn't make any difference, it's just a song, you know. Well, no, it's not just a song. People guide their lives by it. And so these songs, they really do play on emotions. They're songs that are pushing drugs, sex, violence, and rebellion big time. You know, the rebellion started a bit earlier, and now it's, you know, progressed into what it is now. But so, in fact, one of the things we have to remember is to, of course, control our emotions. We can turn on over to page 29 as a reminder real quick. You know, in this particular chapter, chapter 2 on page 29, the title is Controlling Your Emotions to Your Advantage. And it starts out by saying you have the power to control your thoughts and the emotions that arise from the way you perceive a situation. Now, if you're listening to this music, what are your thoughts going to be? You can't control your thoughts when your thoughts are being formed by the music. You're listening to the music, it's going into your head, it's going into your heart, because it's got the music and the words and everything mixed. Just like the ABCs, it's going in there so you remember it, you know. But you have the power to control your thoughts and the emotions that arise from the way you perceive a situation. And remember, some people play those songs to get their emotions cranked up and rolling, to go in a certain direction. Remember that. Emotions are what we feel, and no one feels the same way every day. Have you ever felt cheerful one minute, then a situation occurs and you found yourself down and depressed? You can do that from song to song. You can listen to a song that's very sad, you can listen to one that's very glad, or one that's full of anger or rebellion, and you could just ride the emotion roller coaster, man. However, as important as emotions are, if they're not controlled, they will control you. And that's the part that we need to be aware about. Because these songs are filled with emotion, and they're there to control your emotions, to play on you. And so you've got to control your emotions. And this is why you have to be very careful and guard your mind. Now, page 30, in fact, just real quick. Emotions are strong physical and mental responses triggered by what we experience. A trigger is something that starts a process. Emotions are triggered by what we hear, see, smell, taste, and touch. So that trigger, that music comes on again, you hear it, the trigger hits, and, you know, it starts this process of whatever that song is teaching you and with whatever emotion it is playing on you. You know, this is something that has to be remembered. And, you know, talking about that music and violence, the next page, page 127, well, let me just read this to you. On page 68 in the character unit, it starts out, it says music and violence. I know most of you don't have the book with you, but the following excerpt was taken from Richard C. Monk's Taking Sides, Clashing Views on Controversial Issues in Crime and Criminology, page 37. So this book, this is only one example of the powerful influence music has on its listeners. While on patrol in July 1992, 2 Las Vegas police officers were ambushed and shot by 4 juvenile delinquents who boasted that Ice-T's cop killer. Now, that was in 1992, and I remember these songs, and I remember that, yeah, they were, I mean, I was even appalled by it. But a popular newly released rap song gave them a sense of duty and purpose to get even with the police. See, they used it as their anthem, something to live by. The juveniles continued to sing its lyrics even when apprehended. Excuse me. Keep in mind that not all movies, songs, or even video games are violent or inappropriate. And even if you were to eliminate all movies, songs, video games, guns, whatever, there would still be other negative influences. You have to be responsible and determine how you are being influenced. You got to be responsible. But if you're already being taught against responsibility and you're already being taught rebellion, how are you going to be responsible? You have to put forth effort. Keep your eyes and ears open to the world around you. Constantly ask yourself this: is what I'm seeing or hearing worth valuing? Is what I'm seeing or hearing going to matter in my life 30 years from now? Guess what? That's not one you can throw out. That's not a small thing, because yes, it will matter in your life 30 years from now. What you're hearing, you'll always be able to hear again. You hear 3 notes of a song that you're familiar with, and you already know the song and can probably sing most of it, just like it were yesterday. All right, so that's what I wanted you to get out of that right there is what I'm seeing or hearing worth valuing. So are you going to hold on to it or not? So on page 127, here's what it all boils down to. Anything you spend so much time doing is going to affect you in one way or another. Now, when I was growing up, when we listened to music, we didn't just go listen to a song and then we turned it off and went out the door. We listened to music hours and hours and hours. Riding down the road, music playing. Stopped somewhere, music playing. We didn't have earbuds back then, but something like that, little earphone things that really didn't produce much quality sound. But whatever the case, there was some music going whenever you had the opportunity. And it was the type of music we've been talking about. So it talks about an article here where the music affected someone's life. Suicide has increased 300% since 1950. It's increased a lot more even since 2000 or so. It has increased to such catastrophic numbers. The teenage suicide rate in America is the highest of all industrialized nations, and teenage suicides are linked to depression fueled by fatalistic music and lyrics. And this is according to the National Education Association. In 1988, Dr. Mark Rosenberg, addressing the American Society of Suicidology, said, "It was thought that the way to prevent suicide was to treat depression." How do they do that? Drugs? More drugs? It's not the case with these kids. Rather than being clinically depressed, these young suicide victims are impulsive and acting out fantasies. Remember again the anthem? Remember the songs that they went out and acted out the songs? They felt compelled. They had now a reason for living and a purpose in life. So where are the fantasies coming from that these young people are acting out? Time after time, the culprit is rock music. Dr. Paul King, medical director of the adolescent program at Charter Lakeside Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, says more than 80% of his patients are there because of rock music. 80% of his patients are there because of rock. The lyrics become a philosophy of life. And I know that firsthand, and so do many of you. In December 1985, 2 18-year-olds, after listening to Judas Priest sing Beyond the Realms of Death, climbed out of the bedroom window and went to a nearby playground. And there one of the 18-year-olds put a sawed-off shotgun to his head, pulled the trigger, and literally blew his head off. As he lay dead on the playground, the second teenager took his turn. He said there was so much blood, it was like the gun had grease on it. There was so much blood I could hardly handle it. and it was like I didn't even have control. My body was compelled to do it, so I went ahead and shot. Well, he survived the gunshot wound, but slipped into a coma in November '88 and died a few days later. So that's one story, and there's many more just like it. One that I saw recently was where a young man had a horribly disfigured face. I mean, it didn't even look like a human, really. And he lived through a similar incident where him and his buddy had a suicide pact, and his buddy died, he didn't. And his life, of course, changed drastically that day. Let's let's go over to lesson plan page 5, or plan 5, page D. And in procedure 5 is what we've been working on. We just moved on to page 127. I would have liked to hit on this a little bit before, but it says guide class discussion by asking students if they think music can influence people. Amazingly, the answers you get when you're asking people that are not familiar with the peaceful solution or not familiar with some of these statistics, the answers are very strange. So have students read the section More Than Just a Great Beat, which we did on 126, and then discuss the excerpt on page 127. And so some of the questions that would apply to page 127 there of what we just read is, how can lyrics become a philosophy of life? Think about that yourself. You could write the answer down if you want. Just know that these are questions to help guide a classroom discussion. B, what statements in this particular excerpt, page 127, show that a lack of self-control is a factor in the deaths of the two boys? And, of course, some of the things that you read beforehand due to people living out fantasies and so forth, should help with that. It says, explain to students that not everyone is influenced in such extreme ways. That's true. But the fact that some can be influenced to imitate violent acts and even take their own lives should be a warning to us all. And those songs, there's many. You could go on there and look. There's so many songs that are comparable to this and even worse, that really come right out and actually tell whoever the listener is that they need to commit suicide. It's really bad. I was very I don't even know how to describe how I felt when I was reading some of these lyrics talking about the suicide. It's just unbelievable. Hang on just a minute for me. I think... No. Okay, well, never mind. It wasn't on that page. There was something that, well, this article, when you research this article, you're going to find other ones like it too. Let me just say that. You're going to find plenty of articles where it becomes evident that what is being said here is real and true. You can find many cases of it, okay? So I don't have the exact page that we had something else on, but okay. Procedure number 6. Let's take a look at that real quick. Procedure number 6 is have students read the section entitled Self-Control is the Key, found on page 128. And then write the REACT acronym on the board, which, of course, the acronym is basically an abbreviation that gives you a process there. Tell students that by using self-control, you can learn how to react to negative influences so that they're not swayed to make choices they will regret. Emphasize that self-control is the key to being able to resist negative influences and maintain positive moral character. Yeah, self-control. That's something that you kind of throw out the window when you're listening to some of this music. If you've already turned it on and are listening, you've already thrown the self-control out the window. doesn't mean that you can't snap back and realize what's going on and say, what in the world am I doing here? Man, I don't want to hear this stuff. You know, you stop. Let me see here. You know, a great time to do this would be before you even turn on the music, but, you know, is to stop and think and evaluate. You know, think about what's going on. Why are you wanting to listen to this music in the first place? Do you want to get on that emotional roller coaster? Yeah, it's actually feeling. You know, a lot of people do drugs because of the emotional roller coaster. You can actually, you're sitting there bored, nothing to do, you know, and you know, well, let's get high. You know, that was always the answer. Let's get high. And so you're going on the roller coaster. But you can stop and think and consider the options and then proceed with the right choice. And this can be used at any time. If you mess up and you kind of throw it out the window for a minute, you know, you can snap back and think about it again. It's never something that's canceled. If you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, stop and think about it and consider the option. You know, what's going to take place if I can continue listening to this stuff, or continue watching this movie, or continue, you know, whatever the case might be. All right. So self-control is the key, and that brings us into it with the STOP acronym there, but self-control is the key. So understanding the main point. Of course, not everyone goes to the extreme as the young men in the previous article. No one's saying that violence in video games, songs, or TV will turn everyone into killers or encourage suicidal tendencies. However, there is proof that negative influences from these sources do affect the way some people behave. Remember the influences. Well, turn over to page 118, back over to page 118. And let's look real quick. You can never be reminded, we can never be reminded enough about this, that an influence is something or someone who can affect the way that we think, act, and feel. And so this is talking about influences. Influences can also affect what you value, or they can motivate you to adopt even new values. Hey, might be some new values you learn from that music you're listening to, you know? Anything that has the potential to affect what you value also has the potential to affect your character and hence your self-control. And so then on page 120, what are negative influences? Well, negative influences can cause you to make choices that are immoral. Now, that's what we want to refrain from, because an immoral choice is one that hurts yourself, others, property, or the environment. That's an immoral choice. We want to make the moral choice. An immoral choice can have a negative effect on your character. It can result in harm to yourself and others. Like positive influences, negative influence can also come in different forms, okay? Let's go back to page 128. So I'm going to read that again. There is proof that negative influences from these sources, the video games, songs, movies, TV, etc., affect the way some people behave. These influences can affect the way emotions such as anger are handled and can contribute to outbursts of aggression and violence. They have also been proven to be a factor in why people our age, that's every age, choose to engage in premarital sex and other illegal activities. So how should you react to negative influences? Well, one of the first things you can do, and again, it's something you could have done before you possibly got this far, but turn on page 11 in your self-control unit, it's talking about guarding your mind. Another key concept in developing self-control is to be aware that your actions begin with your thoughts. Once again, it's with your thoughts. So if you're listening to music or watching a movie that's getting your thoughts into, oh yeah, man, you know, that guy deserves that, like a movie, you know, the bad guy, he deserves it, you know. Well, you're already building up a lack of compassion and care and concern and wondering what that person's been through and what's causing him to do the things he's doing and so forth. And you're making judgment on the person and you just want to see him die or go to prison. So, but your actions and your judgments and thoughts or your opinions begin with those thoughts. and see how your values can be affected also. So it's real easy to say, I just did it and wasn't thinking, but the truth is we're always thinking. And thoughts enter our minds at the speed of light. Thoughts about ourselves, others, things we need to accomplish, things we want. And these thoughts lead to feelings, which in turn lead to behavior. And it's no surprise that sad thoughts make you sad, you know. So look on down. It's up to you to determine if your thoughts can help you build your character or if they can lead to choices that you will regret. Let's go back to page 128. So ask it again. How should you react to negative influences? Well, now that you know that you put your positive growth and development in jeopardy when you're exposed to these influences, so you got some negative influences there, you've looked at it, you've kind of noticed that, yeah, that's negative. Man, but might be it won't hurt this one time, or, oh man, I remember when, or I just want to go check it out for a minute, you know. Oh man, it makes me feel great, you know. So you're exposed to these influences, and you've noticed that it's there, and you know it's not the best thing for you. But it's up to you to make wise and responsible choices regarding how you are entertained. And you know, I don't have the exact definition with me, but we know that entertained, it's like detaining you. It's keeping you from doing something useful. It's keeping you just back, you know, just dumb and stupid, watching whatever's in front of you, you know. No value to it, except negative things. So before you watch your next movie or buy your next video game, stop and think about the possible effects they can have on your ability to practice self-control. Keep in mind that those who witness repeated acts of violence are more likely to respond with violence when angry. Remember that a violent response does not show self-control. Do some research, find out if the movie's violent or contains sexually explicit scenes, then choose something more appropriate to watch. The same thing should be done before you buy your next CD or listen to a song on the radio. And if it's promoting violence and sex, use your self-control and choose to listen to something else. Well, you know, you could go right online where a lot of people are watching from tonight, this evening, and you could go online and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos of classes, women's class, children's classes, even some cartoons, songs, thousands and thousands of things that you could, excuse me, you know, watch to, I don't really like to use the word entertain, but by using the peaceful solution in that manner next time, it would be okay for it to detain you and keep you from going out and doing something stupid, you know? So it's there, and you can look back, and for those of you online, you can scroll down just one quick scroll and probably see 15 or 20 classes available to you right now. So let's keep that in mind and use your self-control. Remember to stop, think, and consider your options and proceed. You know, anything that you do, your whole life you've been building this set of values. And these values, if they're not knocked down by these things that we're talking about, it can help you. It can help you practice self-control and to choose the right thing. But whenever you're letting these things tear you down, these negative influences tear you down, eventually it can have an effect on your values and your opinions and thoughts, and you know, you might go do something that you'd rather not do. So going back over this for a moment, remember on page 126, you know, we talked about it's more than just a great beat. That beat is putting something within you. It can be a hypnotic effect that it's having on you, and that these songs people use as a guide for their life, as an anthem, a way to a way to conduct themselves, you know, and some want to go out and live out these fantasies and so forth. And remember that it's the emotions that are being played here, and that we have to we have to guard our emotions, guard our mind. We've got to do these things, otherwise it's going to have an effect on us that we just can't handle. One thing, I don't know if I pointed this out on I think the statistics have changed a little bit, but I'm going to read this on page 126 at the bottom. According to the Parents Music Resource Center, American teenagers listen to an estimated 10,500 hours of rock music between the 7th and 12th grades alone, and that's just 500 hours less than they spend in school over 12 years. And that's similar to the numbers that Catan was telling us about last time. And remember what it all boils down to. Anything you spend so much time doing is going to affect you in one way or another. So, keeping in mind that what we're saying is true, there's proof of it in all these articles of these things that have taken place during our lifetimes. So, we're going to just take a quick look at the top of page 129. It says, use the following acronym to help you remember how to react to negative influences. So take a look at that, then we're going to stop. Recognize whether the influence is positive or negative. Examine all your options. Act with positive moral character. Consider the consequences or rewards. And think about making the right choice. So this goes right in line with the STOP acronym. You know, it goes right in line with it. We're going to be starting on page, what's that, page 128? Or, I just had it there a moment ago, I'm sorry. Yep, page 129. We'll be starting the next class on page 129, and that will be on Sunday, June 26th of this year at 5:30, and we look forward to seeing everyone here in person and online once again, and we'll see you then. Thank you for coming.